Good evening. Welcome to Born Political. I'm your host, Joe Delacruz. Another really exciting week here. I got a great guest coming up. Haven't done the show in a couple of weeks. I had a few things come up, as often happens when you're a state rep and when it's summertime, all those things happen. My guest tonight is last week we actually, or 2 weeks ago, talked about the Groton sale. This is somebody else that's a part of it. We're going to get to know who this person is. You probably know him already if you know anything about Groton or been around Groton or possibly went to the library in the last few years. You may know him. Jim Streeter, he's known to me and to many others as our town historian, someone that loves not just Groton, but the history of Groton. Not who we are today, but who we were before, back hundreds of years ago. And we love all the work you've done for the community because we have a better perspective of what Groton is and who we are. Thanks to Jim Streeter. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Joe. Nice to be here.
Great. It's great to have you. I've been wanting you on the show for a while. And the show Born Political throws people off because the name, they say, why'd you name it Born Political? You guys you're not sitting at the table and fighting and talking about politics. And my theory is that we're all political. We start off as babies crying when we need something, when we want something, and we realize, well, when we cry, we got to eat or something happened as a result of how the wheel that squeaked. Yeah. And I said, if we're gonna figure out how people are tick, we should know who they are. And I assume everyone was born in Groton in New London because I really haven't gone far in my life. I was born in Germany because I was, my dad was in the Army, but I really haven't been out in New London or Groton for more than a 10 or 11 day stint in my whole life. I didn't go to school. I didn't ever went away. And so I just assume everyone was from here, but I think you are from here.
Well, I kind of consider myself a native. My father worked on military aircraft and stuff like this. And we moved, I was born in East Haven, and when I was 6 months old, we moved to Paquonic Bridge. Okay. Right? So I kind of consider myself a native.
I would say 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes you a native. Now why did you move to Groton? Was your dad in the
service?
Yeah,
because my dad was working, I believe he was working at Electric Boat at the time.
Okay.
But he had been working with aircraft and things like this, but he was a draftsman, and so he went to Electric Boat. We moved into Paquonic Bridge because that was a lot of military-oriented residents that lived there.
Yep. So in your family, I think this has a lot to do with it too. How big's your family? Your brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I had 2 brothers and a sister.
I know your sister, tackle shop.
Yeah, you bet.
Right. Everyone know if you have a clamming license in Groton, you know Jim's sister.
Well, that's in fact interesting. You mentioned that because my father started the business while we lived in Paquonic. He took over one of the bedrooms as a store, and then ultimately in 1957, they moved over to Thames Street, opened up the store, and my sister still runs it today. So it's been in business since 1957.
I did not realize it was in business that long.
Oh, yeah.
And your dad started that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Ken's Tackle.
Ken's Tackle. That was my dad, Ken. Yep.
I'm learning something today.
Good.
That's part of the history that I didn't know. I just knew that was your sister. I didn't know where Ken came in, but that was your dad.
Yep, that was my dad.
So you got this. And where are you in the family as far as, are you the oldest, youngest?
No, I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yep.
The baby of the family.
I am the baby.
You are.
And, you talked about the politics, and that's what you do. You smile at your mama, she gives you something to eat.
Yeah.
Right? You frown at your mama, she take care of you.
Exactly.
So you're right. You learn politics from the day you're born.
But even that, your position in the family, I'm the middle, and it was like I was Switzerland. I had an older brother and a younger sister, and I had to be. I was like, it was on eggshells because if you step on the eggshell too hard, and the younger sister's crying, and then the older brother's right there to annoy you and her at the same time.
Well, I was fortunate. Our family all got along together, and going back to Paquonic, we only, there were three bedrooms. One of them was the tackle shop, one was the mom and dad's, and then 3 of us, my brother, my sister, and I shared a room. We put up a curtain in between so my sister could have privacy.
So the tackle shop was in one of the houses down there?
No, it was in one of the bedrooms in the house on Central Avenue.
On Central Avenue.
Yeah.
So regular, turned it into a commercial business.
That's it. From there he flew, and that's how many years?
Well, people are nervous about the Airbnbs and all this, and you guys had a straight tackle shop right out of your house back in the day.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be tough to get around zoning these days, maybe or so, but it worked.
It did.
And I'm sure it was very, very helpful to be that close to. Most people fish right there with the broken bridges.
That's right.
So that was right on the way to the fishing. I did not. That is very interesting. Something I didn't know.
Yeah.
So then you went to school all through. Did you go to Claude Chester?
Well, I started off at Paquonic. There was a little stucco school. It's called the Fort Hill School. Okay. I went there. Then I went over to the old community center. went there. Then I went to Claude Chester.
Okay.
All right. And then I went to Fitch Junior. My first year in Fitch Junior, my family moved over to the city of Groton. All right. So then I went to West Side, and then ultimately went to Fitch High School.
And then graduated from Fitch.
Absolutely.
Very, very, very proud Fitch Falcon.
You bet.
Right, so we're on opposite sides because I'm a New London Whaler, and it's funny because I moved from New London to Groton. We talked about that off air, and at 26, I mean, it was a very somber moment for New London and my friends. And what are you doing going to Groton? Like that's the evil empire, and I landed in the right spot. I do.
Well,
love it
I remember the competition between New London and Fitch. I graduated in '63, and the football teams and the basketball teams. There was a lot of competition. There was a lot of push and shove.
There's something about a river that divides two communities that creates this deep rift. Like, and it's love because you know we do love each other. I mean,
absolutely.
You don't want to make it sound crazy, but there is that competitive thing, and it has to do with crossing a bridge. And I talked to somebody else that said, yeah, you know, I had the same thing. I forget who I interviewed, but they were separated by a river somewhere, and he said, yeah, it was very competitive and maybe it's the bridge.
It could be. But it's interesting, when I was in the Army, they'd ask you, where are you from? You say, Groton, Connecticut. They say, well, where's Groton? So what did you say? It's across the river from New London. Everybody knew where New London was.
Really?
But they
Back
didn't
in the
seem
day,
to know, people from around the country.
Well, our submarine base that's located in Groton is called Nylon, New London, right?
Yeah.
And New London submarine base. And I think there's a lot of source that could be solved for a lot of folks that live in Groton. Most people don't know that. They just call it Nylon. They don't realize that it's standing for New London. But that's because it's in New London County, I guess, or maybe that's why they named it that way.
Yes and no. You know, it goes way back in history. Actually, New London bought the property. Citizens from New London bought the property, the politicians, and they donated it to the U.S. government. All right?
Wow.
So that's how you got New London submarine base to start off with.
Look at this, and this is why I wanted you on the show, Jim. But we're in the infancy of this show right now. We just started, and we really haven't even we just got you out of high school. Yeah. But did you go straight to the Army after high school?
I did.
You did.
I graduated in June, and I was in the Army the first week of July.
First week in July.
That's it.
Off air, you told me you got married right away.
Right away. We were married, my wife and I, my childhood sweetheart.
Yep.
You know, to high school. We went to high school together.
Yep.
And we've been married 58 years.
That's it, huh? So I was -6 when you got married, pretty much. but so now you have kids overseas, and which I had never thought about until I actually got to interview my mom on this very show. That how amazing it must be to think that here's this 18-year-old person now all of a sudden that was growing up in this small community is getting ready to have a child out of the country.
Yeah.
Like just what an amazing change that is. But you're supported because you lived on base, kind of?
No, and that was, it was part of growing up. My wife and I always say we grew up together.
Yeah.
In the Army. We'll go backwards in time. She was 16, I was 18.
Yep.
All right. So we have our daughter was born in Japan, and I wasn't of rank, so we lived on the economy, which was great because it's my wife. She actually got to go to actual Japanese tea parties.
Yep.
All right. We learned to talk Japanese. We went to shopping at the local stores and things like this in Japan.
Wow.
And military, I moved around with it. I was in a security detachment, intelligence group.
Yep.
And I was in Japan, and then we went to Hawaii, and that's where my son was born.
Not
in
tough
Hawaii.
places to be.
No, and then we went. Then I went to Guam. Then I went to Philippines. Then I went to Okinawa. Then I went to Vietnam. Then back to Hawaii. So it's.
So you were pretty much all. Was most of your career in the Asia area, in that Pacific area?
In the Asian area. Yep.
Yep.
Except for the time at school up in.
So how long were you overseas? Did your kids go to school out there?
No. We came back.
Okay.
We came back in '67. I had a 4-year enlistment. We came back in '67, and we've been in Groton ever since.
So you did your 4 years, came back, hit the ground running here, and where did you work when you got back home?
For 3 months, because I have a family.
3 months. Everyone has that 3-month job.
I had a family to support. I worked at an electric boat. I was a department clerk.
Okay.
And I had always wanted to be a police officer.
Yep.
So that opening came up after 3 months, and I was on the Groton City Police Department for 9 years.
And I knew that. So you did 9 years as a police officer.
Yes, I did.
And then decided to change careers?
No. I continued because Electric Boat's in the city. They had their own investigative group.
Yep.
And at that time, they had close to 22,000 people working there. So you had their own community. So ultimately, I went to Electric Boat, and through the years, became chief of investigations for General Dynamics. And we traveled the country doing investigations for General Dynamics and Electric Boat here. All right. Then I left there after 17 years, sort of retired, opened up a liquor store, believe it or not.
Okay.
And while I was there, I also picked up some training in the forensic field.
Yep.
Specifically documents, handwriting, and ultimately, because I have my degrees in criminal justice and things like this, Dr. Henry Lee called me, wanted me to go to work at the State Police Forensic Lab.
And if you don't know Henry Lee, you probably don't remember the whole OJ case or everything else he was involved in. But he was a world-renowned forensic scientist. And
so I went to the State Police Lab and worked there for 15 years. Retired out of there, and now I have a private forensic evidence business. And
still ticking. Now, how's that going?
It doesn't slow down. It doesn't slow down.
No, just staying busy all the way through.
Yeah.
And you still enjoying it?
That's why I keep doing it. The money's not too bad.
Yeah.
I enjoy working, and one other thing I always say, I have a recall. When you're in the forensic field, when you're an expert, and you testify, your friends to one side, your enemy to the other side, and they're going to pick on you. And so what they'll do is they'll put you on the stand and they'll say, "Mr. Streeter," and they'll ask you a question, and you'll answer it. And then 10 minutes later, they'll say, "Now, Mr. Streeter, you testified that," and I have the recall. They say, "No, counselor. If you'll review the transcript, this is what I said." Because if I say, "Yeah, that's what I said," and then he will say or she will say, "No, you said this." And then I say, well, I made an error. And they have you. They'll say, "Oh, you made an error? Did you make an error when you did your examination?" So I still have recall. So as long as I have those three things, I'll continue doing it.
And I don't think most people, this goes back, I mean, I'm thinking even the court case that me and my wife had to go through, which was horrible. But to try to understand and really grasp the expertise that not just your local police department has to have, or the chief, and how evidence has to be documented. Because when you go to court, you have somebody that's professionally trained to try to catch you.
That's right.
In either saying the wrong thing or contradicting something you said earlier. Some things came up in the case that before I got involved or was a part of a murder trial. I had absolutely no idea how it could affect the outcome by somebody just saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, writing the wrong word down, having evidence marker be 6 and then another picture was 7, or just things that you wouldn't normally think could be a problem are a mountain when it comes to prosecuting somebody.
That's the secret of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's almost like your whole life prepared you for that exact job, because you went to the Army and you were involved in intelligence, doing police work, and you have degrees. But where did you go to? Did you go to college in between, or was it?
No, I when I went on the police department, I went to the University of New Haven. And I have an associate's bachelor's in criminal justice, and by the time I finished my bachelor's, I was at Electric Boat, and. I said I've been a policeman. Everything in my career is law enforcement, so I wanted to diversify. So I went back, and I got my master's at the University of New Haven in industrial relations, which is today human resources.
So you didn't sleep much?
No.
It sounds like
no.
I don't know. When you put all of those things together and compact it, even though we talk about this a 58-year career, there's still a lot packed in there. And we'll be talking about what we're working on together here. But you always ask the busy person to do something.
I'm glad you said that, Joe, because my mentor in the historical field of Groton history was Carol Kimball, and that was her favorite saying: "If you want to get something done, you ask a busy person." And I guess the justification is a busy person knows how to. Organize and prioritize what needs to be done, when do we do it, how can we do it.
Yep.
So that
There's
was their
another
favorite saying.
saying. I'm a union sheet metal worker, and the guys will say, it's a funny one. You might use, you may not. But you always ask the lazy guy the easy way to do something.
Yeah.
Because he figured it out.
Good point.
Something,
Good point.
take the elevator, don't take the stairs. Whatever it is,
Yes.
there's some easier way. Don't carry that couch up the stairs. Why would you do that? There's an elevator. Because the lazy guy will find that way. But that's the running joke. But it is true, and people often lean on you. When it comes time to for anything. If there's to me, if there's something going on and they need some background, I was very, very pleased when they approached you and asked you about this donation that you made, because I don't know if a lot of people know about it. If you haven't been to the library in the last, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago now that they had the opening, but there's a section of the library that's named after you. There's a good reason, because there's all your stuff that's inside this room. That it's not just beautifully built and displayed, but really, if you walk in this room, you get a sense of what Groton was like before and where it is now, and you kind of put that collection together. You've written a book. I'm just very appreciative of what you've done. Because I get to walk in without much effort at all, and find out a lot of stuff very easily because of what you've done.
Well, fortunately, the collection has contributed to my knowledge, that's for sure. I'm constantly learning.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm doing research for an article, and going backwards, I've written 6 books on Groton.
Yep.
Right, and I have 2 more on the burner. I also have written over 300 articles for the Times newspaper, for the day newspaper.
Wow.
So, but through all that writing comes research. And the research is voluminous as far as learning.
Yep.
And that's why when I give a presentation, I write a book, I write an article, and my reward is when somebody says, I didn't know that. Yep. That's my reward.
Well, and you're blessed, I think, because you landed in a spot where this is not a boring town. Everyone's, we're the sleepy side of the state, right? There's only 30,000 to 38,000 people that live in Groton. There's only 20-something in London. And I think, since I went to Hartford, when you tell someone from Bridgeport that the city in London is 28,000 and I represent this metropolis of 38,000 people, they're like, oh, that's a neighborhood in Bridgeport, and it is.
It is.
But our history and what we've done here, and all the way back from whaling to the cannery that was on the fishing cannery that was on Pine Island, that people like, what's the foundation? Just all the little things that have happened here, and the ups and downs. And I think what I get to see is when you have the history behind it, and we could see what happened to EB, and I think in the beginning we didn't ride that wave properly. Pfizer had thousands of employees, and they still do. I think a lot of people assume that because EB's the talk of the town, that Pfizer is this little company. They have 5,000 people.
Yes.
5,000 people that work there. Yeah. And I think it's important that we understand that, when we had that first wave with 22,000 people when you were first there, that we take advantage of that and that we dovetail economic development with it. And I think that's the direction we're going in Groton. But all that, you need to know the history.
Well, in another point you ought to throw in, along with Pfizer and Electric Boat, is a submarine base.
Oh, yeah.
People, they don't think about that submarine base.
Yep.
Look, the thousands of people that either stationed or work there,
yep,
and the families that are connected with it. I mean, they make up a major portion of our community.
Well, think of the fight we had. And again, if it's not for someone that documents history, someone that has a deep understanding of why stuff is important, we had the BRAC Commission and base realignment and closing, and was almost an all foregone conclusion that it was going to happen, but for residents like you, groups that I remember being on the side of the road holding signs. I knew at a young age the importance of the submarine base. I'm a construction worker. I knew what it meant to have that base. A lot of people drive by it and they see a gate and they see some fencing and they don't know what happens on that base. An awful lot of things that happen that are unbelievable for our country, for the defense of our country. But that is a job center. It's a city
in itself
that a lot of people drive to, and they come back home and supply their families with health insurance and benefits, and they're good jobs, strong jobs. And I think folks like you recognize that, and we couldn't give people enough credit for being outside the road. The people that were saying, well, those guys seem to be fighting because that's their own little thing in their corner of the world. But I think now we can see, and we weren't fighting for that sub base just to have it. We knew the importance of it.
Absolutely.
And I think our world and America as a whole knows the importance of Groton now.
Absolutely. And, going back when I was on the council, we felt it was so important. And this was just before you went on.
Yep.
Right? We took our letterhead and said, hey, wait a minute. We're the submarine capital of the world.
And we are.
And we put it on our letterhead. Everything that goes out now, if we write a letter from here to San Francisco, they know Groton, Connecticut is the submarine capital of the world. It's right there. Right there.
And there's a certain feeling we're already down to just about 10 minutes. And we could be on this could be a 5-hour show. I don't know if people will watch the whole 5 hours or not, but I would. I love talking to you, but we do want to talk about this poster behind me very quickly. And I do want to say, Marion Galbraith called me and asked if I'd be part of this committee. And after doing this 15 years of public service and now the foot's coming off the gas pedal a little, I said, I don't know if I want to jump in anything real quick. To walk into a meeting in this day and age where 12 people are rowing the boat in the same direction, and I'm not saying we're all rubber stamping each other, but we're all very excited about this project that's coming up. Me because I really feel like I've had a part in building submarines, and I was on the sub base. I built the firefighter trainer. That was one of the first jobs I was on in 1989. Okay. Knowing that the thousands of sailors, I mean, imagine you're 18. So what people don't understand, you're 18, and they start training you how to fight a fire on the boat because everyone has to be firefighter trained.
Yes.
And imagine coming from the middle of America, never been on a boat in your whole life or seen the ocean. Now they're teaching you how to put out a fire because it's very likely you could have to do this one day, and you may be 1,000 feet under the surface on this boat putting out a fire, and they're going to teach you how to do it. I think it's intimidating. I think it's scary, but I'm glad that I had part in a trainer that makes it lifelike. That if they are faced with that fire, that they can put it out. And that's my little piece, and it makes me. I've been connected to it, and that's what makes me excited about this project.
This project this has been in the workings for many years.
Yep.
I stumbled across it. Like my collection, I don't throw anything away. I came across a document when I was on the town council. When I heard that they were going to dismantle the USS Groton, I made a referral to the committee on the council, see if we could get the sail back here in Groton. You know when that was, Joe? August 2007.
Wow.
So that's how long I've been involved. And Mark Offinger, the former town manager, they had talked about it before then.
Yep.
So it's been a long project. It kind of had a slow death in the council.
Yep.
But fortunately, we had a group of citizens: Marion Galbraith, Mark Offinger. The list of names goes on and on.
Yep.
They said, "Hey, let's start a group," and we did.
Yep. And I think
now we're here.
The importance of this too, to me, is it's a workers' memorial. It's a person that served memorial. It's, to me, Bridge Market that we go to lunch at, or if you're next door at wherever you're eating across the street, any restaurant, they're supporting in a way, their own way. They're supporting this community that does build these unbelievably important vessels, and submarines are.
That's why when we started the committee, we said our mission statement is to build a memorial, a monument, right, dedicated to the designers, builders, operators, and maintainers of submarines. And it goes along with that comes the community, the submarine community, their families, their friends. Everybody's connected with this submarine. That's why it's so important that we have that monument.
Yeah, and what's striking to me is when we did go to Hartford, and I just think of Groton and London. London was my hometown, and Groton was my hometown. But when we started talking about differences and why Groton would need certain funds as opposed to another town, because what our school system looks like. We have kids that come here and have no idea who the doctor in town is. I think we don't. You know it because you're on the other side of it. You were in another country looking for a pediatrician. So somebody that from Nebraska that just joined the Navy, their spouse is at home and they may be out and away, and all of a sudden the child is sick and they just landed here. They don't know that, Dr.
No.
Whoever is the guy to see. And I think that's what makes our community very unique. And we have a lot of outreach that happens between, the Navy personnel, and there's liaisons, but it's just been, it's a natural thing, because you end up going to school with someone now that they were here for 2 or 3 years. My wife said she lost like 3 best friends, and maybe even forgot who they were, the name, but they were kind of hanging out because you're in 3rd grade, and here's this kid that you went to kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade with. Here comes 3rd grade, they're gone. And they could be on the other side of the planet, but we're just hoping that every community was like Groton's, where they land in a soft spot, and that's what we try to do.
And that's what this memorial monument's going to do.
Yep. It's
going to show the cohesiveness of our entire community. All right?
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to it. Yes, it's going to be a long haul, as far as, tough haul.
It is.
We've got to raise a lot of money, but there's a lot of interest in it, and we're going to do it. It's going to happen.
Then we could, this is a little bit of a platform here, and I'm sure I'm going to share it around, but we are looking for people that are interested in being part of it.
Yes.
And don't sell yourself short. And like I said, if I connect myself directly, because I build some things that go on the submarines that help build it, but I also had to eat lunch, and somebody had to, I coached baseball where I had a few Navy families where the kids were Navy families. All those little connections that we have made us the community that we are. And that is just to stand there. Then when you see this thing at night and know that the sail and the rudder are the right distance, and when it gets a little dark, you're going to, I think you're going to stand at the water level. The sidewalk is going to be water level, and you're going to be looking at what a submarine looks like sticking out of the water.
And that's, we live here. We see submarines on the water, but yes, if you worked at an electric boat, you got to touch it.
Yep.
But the average person doesn't get to see the actual size and touch it. Well, they'll be able to come here and touch that sail.
Yep.
All right? And look at the size of it. This isn't a small little coffee table sitting there.
It's not.
This is huge.
Yep.
All right? And that the actual design will be the exact length of a submarine. So you'll get to see the size of a submarine. You'll be up close and personal to what a submarine. Oh, geez, these are huge. Yes, they're huge. And of course, we'll inside and around it, we'll have all sorts of displays, given the history of submarines, given the history of an electric boat. And, it's so important. It's not just history.
Yep.
It's our lives.
It is.
All right. So I'm anxious to be.
And I think it's going to be funny. We'll have a little, maybe, we know what the weight is of the sail. We'll put a little tag on that. I'm working on a project that's just one of the hatches. So it's a hatch that's a manway, an escape trunk hatch. And they dropped it off, and we had to hire a crane to take it off the truck.
Yeah.
It was 17,000 pounds. So, you're probably talking, that's probably going to be 300,000 pounds of sail, maybe 400,000 pounds.
It's big.
Yeah, it had to come on different trucks. I've actually been looking and monitoring it because I'm on base a lot. And that's actually located right now, and has been for the last couple of years, or a few years. It's on sub-base now.
It certainly doesn't look like a sail right now.
No, it doesn't. But Monday we're having...
We have a unveiling of a large sign right outside the location. The location is going to be right off the property between the senior center, or Live 55, they call it, and then the Groton Library. That's where the sale is going to go. So we're going to unveil a sign.
So we are out of time. I knew it was going to be fast. Again, Jim, thank you for coming on the show. I'm sure we'll have you on again. There's plenty to talk about. There'll be other stuff coming up, and we'll do some updates. But thanks for coming on the show.
All right, Joe.
Great show. Great having you. I appreciate it. Yeah, this show.